I'm Dino. I'm going to make salsa today, and this is enough to make about 11 or 12 jars. They'll be ready to can and take and put in your pantry when you're ready to use it. I've got the biggest pot that you've got is better. And when you're not spilling, I've got my tomatoes, everything all set before I get to my vegetables. And I make myself a little cheat sheet. That way when you're all done and you're canning your jars and go, oh my God, I think I forgot the salt, or I forgot this, or I forgot that, or I forgot the garlic. Make a little checklist, and that's the best way to do it. Time to get my tomatoes ready to go into the pot. These are diced tomatoes. I always use diced tomatoes. I don't use whole tomatoes. Then you get too much water, too much juice. I've never done fresh tomatoes. It always comes out. Follow this recipe and it'll be perfect every time. Take 3 cans of diced tomatoes and pour it in your processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can buy like petite tomatoes and just open the can and put it in the pot. Everybody that I talk to likes their tomatoes not so chunky. Then hit the processor. 1, 2, 3. Set it aside and it'll be just the right consistency. It's like, oh, he's using, why don't I just buy a can of crushed tomatoes? I've used crushed tomatoes before. I'll never do it again. It's almost like you're cooking tomato sauce or something. This comes out perfect, you'll see. And then dump her in the pot. Repeat this step until you get, and you want 1 can of tomatoes left over. I will tell you why. Okay, I've got, as you can see, I've got all those 11 cans and saved one. I'm going to set it aside. You'll find out why in a minute. Now these other ingredients that I have, I'm ready to add. And this is important. Take and turn your stove top on. You can use lemon juice or lime juice. I meant to buy lime juice. It looked the same. I didn't realize it was lemon. And you know what? It turns out so good. I stick with lemon. You can do whichever one you want. Okay. Take 1, 2, 3 squirts. I don't know what it is. 3 squirts of the juice. Take 1/3 cup of sugar. Don't dump it in. Spread it out a little bit across the top. That way it's not all bunched in someplace. Okay? Then we've got pepper. I'm talking when I put pepper in, it's to taste, but I just sprinkle it across the top of the salsa, a fairly good amount. How much it is, I really couldn't tell you. And the same thing with the salt. I just take and put the salt and sprinkle it across the top. I think it's less than 1/4 cup or whatever. It's for taste. Then take garlic. I just say there's nothing wrong with garlic. Maybe a couple scoops. And then you're all set. Now that you put it all in, you've got your stove up. Now take, and what you just put in, give it a really, really good stir. And as this is heating up, it's all breaking down, that sugar, the salt, everything. And while it's warming up and heating up, don't bring it to a boil, but put it up to a pretty good heat. Now we're going to take and prep and get all of our vegetables ready, and that is what it is so far. Okay, now we're ready to do our vegetables. I've got everything all clean and ready to go. Your cilantro, this is where that extra can of tomatoes comes in. Stems and all, crush it all in there. Just stuff it in. If you take and you put and try to shred that up, it's just gonna spin and it won't work. Now I take the tomatoes and I put it right across the top. I circle it around, kind of messy, but, and the cilantro, sometimes when you go to the store, they're kind of small and scrawny. I'd get 2. This one was a real nice one, so it's good. Now, okay, we got the cilantro in and the can of tomatoes. Now, give it a good mix. Shake around a little bit. Take it out. It'll look ugly, but that's what you want, stems and all. If there's an extra stem hanging around, I can't stand stems in there, and then dump it in. Every time that you add a vegetable or whatever, give it a good stir. Start mixing it up. Now we're ready for other ingredients. Now we're going to add the jalapenos. 1 habanero. You've got to have this in there. It's going to make flavor. It will put the heat of the salsa just over mild. My wife doesn't like really spicy salsa. It's spicy, it brings out flavor, and it's not too hot for her. Everybody loves exactly this way. If you're a real freak on really hot, you can add 2 or you can add 3. I don't know how you're gonna eat it, but that's your choice. But take the whole thing, seeds and all, put it in. Then cut off the stems and cut up the jalapenos and put them in little 4 quarters. If you take and put the whole thing in, what do you mean? Stem minus the stem. If you put the whole thing in, when you get done grinding it all up, sometimes you've got a big chunk of jalapeno and you really don't want that. Who wants to eat salsa and then have one big piece of onion or one big jalapeno? And I you can use 4 or 5 depending on the size of the jalapenos when you get to the store. These were kind of big. I think that smaller jalapenos are hotter than the larger. But anyway, I'm using 5. And that's as easy as you can get. Now, I'm going to take and put the lid on. Okay, now your habaneros are all in there. Jalapenos too. And shake it. Sometimes one will kind of float around by itself on the top or something. Seeds and all. It's not going to blow you away. But I'm telling you what, when you take and you're done with this, don't get over it. Okay, now that I've got them all chopped up, when you take that lid off, it's very strong. Don't let it scare you. I mean, it'll definitely clean your sinuses out. Then take and get it all in that salsa. And you can hear, I don't know if you can hear it, but my salsa is tomatoes and everything is all warming up and starting to break down all that sugar, salt, pepper, and they're all getting ready. Set this aside. Every time you add something, give it a very good stir and get it thoroughly mixed. I can even turn that up. I want the heat to start pouring on now. Okay, so since I've got that stirred and I've already got my onions all diced up and ready to go, I'll just dump those in and it's all set to go. like I said, so whenever you add something, give it a good stir. Okay, I've got all my ingredients in. That's all there is to it. Now, you want it at maybe a slight boil, but you don't want it too hot because then your salsa is going to start sick. You don't want to burn something on the bottom of your pot. And then come in and stir this occasionally. You don't have to constantly stir it, but you want to make sure all those spices, vegetables, everything is all evenly distributed, and they can start doing their work. As this heats up, that's when it's going to bring out the flavor of those jalapenos and that one habanero. Then I'm going to take and add my tomato paste once I get it ready. Okay, now I'm going to add tomato paste. If I took tomato paste and dug it out of the can and put it straight into the pot, it seems like it takes forever for it to completely break up. And then when you're jarring, sometimes you miss and you've got a big clump of tomato paste. I take the tomato paste, put it in a bowl, and then I add water. And then I just start stirring it up and mixing it up, and then it'll be thoroughly mixed when I add it into my salsa. Then I won't have any clumps. Okay. Now that I've got my tomato paste all broken down, you can see how smooth it is. I mean, you don't want it too runny with water because you're trying to get water out of the salsa. Now you can take and slowly put it in, and it will break up a lot easier, I'm telling you. Just a few stirs and that mix is going to be all the way through that tomato sauce. Now it's starting to heat up really good. And now that tomato paste is what really, like, this salsa doesn't look right. But as soon as you add that salsa and it starts thickening up a little bit, it's gonna look awesome. Now we want it to cook, but not a boil, but we want a pretty good heat on it. And the thing that we don't want is for a jar of salsa to go bad. Some people say bring it to a boil, turn it off, and jar your salsa. I don't care. It's not that much time. I turn it down a little bit. I stir it every 5 minutes. And I probably cook it for close to about like 40, 45 minutes, just to make sure that it's good and cooked and ready to go into my jars. Okay, now that our salsa is ready and ready to be jarred, I bought these jars. And this is very important because that'll even tell you, like on a health video or something. Even though they're brand new, take the lids off, set them aside, and then take and just turn your water in your kitchen sink on hot, and just give your inside jars in and out a good rinse. You'd hate to go through all this work and then have a jar of salsa go bad for a stupid reason. But anyway, I set my jar down on a paper plate because it's messy, and ask my wife what she thinks about a messy kitchen. Okay, so it's all set. Put this in, and I can start jarring my salsa up. Now, camera person, come over here and take a look at this salsa. See how this salsa is starting to get a little pink bubbles right here? That's not quite where you want to be. You want to have a lot more pink. And this has actually only been cooking for about 10 minutes. I've got about 30 minutes left to go. So I'm just stirring it and letting it go. Once it gets up to the pink part, and I'll show you in about 30 minutes, then you're home. Then it's just jar it, and then we go from there. Our salsa has been cooking, and it is ready to jar up. Okay, give it a good stir. And when you jar your salsa, I bought this at Walmart or something, and it makes life a lot easier, believe me. And having this paper, you'll notice that you'll drip. And you should have about 11 jars by the time we get done, maybe 11 and a half or something. I don't think you'll go over 12. You might, but anyway, scoop it in your jar and start putting it in. But when you scoop for more, make sure that it's not settling, the stuff's settling at the bottom, because it kind of will. Not right away, but you don't want just all one juice going into one and tomatoes going into the other. There is one that's done. Now the jar is not too hot to grab right now, but as I fill up all these jars and I get it stir and then start filling. But once I get all these jars filled, by the time that it's all done and I put the caps on, I'm telling you, those jars are going to be hot because it's coming right out of the stove. It's ready to go. So put it just like that and then set it aside. It's not bad. Now, see, I got exactly 12 jars, which is perfect. Now we're going to lid them. So you take and put your lids on, and since the salsa has sat in the jar, you're not going to be able to grab it with your hands. So grab a towel or something, give it a twist, set it aside, and repeat this step until they're all canned. Now, when you go through these jars and you eat all 12 jars, save the jars, wash the jars, then you can take and go to the store. It's not going to seal because they've already been sealed. They won't pop and seal again. Buy replacement lids, and it comes out, there's 12 in this little package, and they're all brand new, ready to go. And you just replace that and keep the rings, wash everything real thorough. Then your only expense is your vegetables, sugar, and all that. I don't know if I mentioned all those cans of tomatoes. Everything's pretty much normal. They're 14 and a half ounce can. Now, as I was filling it, I think I might have spilt a little bit. If you can see salsa, spooning it in, you're not going to be completely clean and perfect. That doesn't matter. You can go ahead and wipe it off if you want. But when we take and we put it in that warm bath of water and let it bubble for 15 minutes, it's just going to wash the jars anyway, so it's no big deal. So I've got 12 jars exactly. Now these little dimples, they're up. If by any chance that they have gone down, you'll hear them click. If it's already gone down before your warm bath, it's no big deal. But still, you want to warm bath it. Don't trust that it's completely done. Now this water is piping hot. This little thing that I bought, any grocery store, is especially for getting the jars out of that water. Now you set them in, and you want your water, they don't have to be submerged, but you want that water, you don't want like 2 inches just doing the bottom. You want it up to cover all the way up to them lids. Now I'm going to set my alarm, timer, whatever, for 15 minutes, and I'm going to let them slow boil for 15 minutes and take them out. I've pretty much explained exactly how I do it. If you follow this to the T every time, the salsa is going to come out exactly like I told you every single time. I'll show you the consistency and the final product here in a second. If you happen to make it and go, that's a little warm for me, leave off a few green jalapenos, but don't take that habanero out, because the green jalapenos, I'm not a firm believer that they're going to make it real hot. So anyway, warm bath for 15 minutes, both batches, and the job is done. Okay, now our jars have been warm bathing for 15 minutes, the product is completely done. As these cool down, and it'll take quite a while, you know, to leave them on your counter overnight is what I do. I just don't worry about them. As time goes on, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, you're gonna hear clicking going on. That little bubble is going to go down. Tomorrow morning, you're going to take a look at all those lids, and 90% of them, it all clicks down. If it does not, it's been sealed. Just push that tab down. It's not that big of a deal. But anyway, there's the product. This tool is very handy for taking them out, because I guarantee you that water is piping hot. You don't want to stick your hands in that water. Here is the finished product. Okay, look at the consistency of it. I mean, it's perfect. It's not runny, it's not watery. It's just nice and thick. And there's no big massive chunks of anything in there. And that is the key to that salsa. I hope you enjoy it. I take it, as a matter of fact, when I do chili, I'll put a jar of salsa in with the recipe. If I make spaghetti sauce, I'll leave a little ragu or whatever that you use, and then I'll take and pour a jar of salsa in there. It's already got spices and everything, and they're already fused together. The work is done. You put it into your sauces, and it's gonna make everything taste so good. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up. I could tell you how good it is, and I could sit here and pass out on my kitchen floor or whatever, chew with my mouth full and explain to you how good this salsa is. Send me a feedback. Tell me what you think about this salsa. And we'll leave it at that. Have a good day.